These are 10 boating gear items that could cost you thousands in Coast Guard fines this year, and some of these changes are catching experienced boaters completely off guard. The Coast Guard isn't messing around anymore. In 2024 alone, they documented nearly 4,000 boating incidents involving 556 deaths and $88 million in property damage. They're cracking down hard on equipment violations, with some fines reaching over $100,000 for serious infractions. What's particularly frustrating for boat owners is that gear you bought just a few years ago might now be completely illegal. Real quick, before we dive into these 10 items, the Coast Guard isn't publishing clear updates, manufacturers aren't telling you what's expired, and dealers certainly aren't volunteering that your gear is now illegal. If you want weekly updates on Coast Guard regulation changes, equipment violations, and safety requirements that actually affect your boat, hit that subscribe button. I track USCG bulletins, state law changes, and enforcement updates so you don't get blindsided during an inspection. New compliance videos every week. Let's start with the biggest change that's hitting boaters right now. Your traditional road flares are becoming a liability. The Coast Guard has officially announced they're retiring pyrotechnic Mk124 flares from their own vessels by April 2026, and they're pushing recreational boaters to make the same switch. Here's what's catching people off guard. Those flares in your emergency kit expire after just 42 months from manufacture. Once that date passes, you're looking at an $1,100 fine. But it gets worse. A group of Rhode Island sailors found out the hard way when they fired off expired flares during a celebration and got hit with a $10,000 federal fine. The problem isn't just legal compliance. As flares age, they become genuinely dangerous. The chemicals can become unstable and unpredictable. You might think you're prepared for an emergency, but you're actually carrying hazardous materials that could malfunction when you need them most. If you've made the smart move to electronic flares, you need to make sure they meet the new standards. Electronic flares must be approved night visual distress signals. But here's the catch. They also need to include a distress flag to qualify as a day visual distress signal. For maximum protection, pair electronic flares with an EPIRB, or personal locator beacon, for satellite-based rescue coordination. The approved electronic flares are actually superior to traditional ones. They flash the SOS sequence for up to 60 hours, stay visible up to 10 nautical miles, and they never expire. Compare that to traditional flares that burn for maybe 15 minutes and you use once. This one's hitting a lot of boat owners hard. Since April 2022, disposable fire extinguishers now have a mandatory 12-year expiration from manufacture date. If your boat is 2018 or newer and under 26 feet, you must carry unexpired 5B, 10B, or 20B extinguishers. Those old BI and B2 types don't cut it anymore. For older boats from 2017 or earlier, you can still use the older classifications. But once they hit 12 years old or become unserviceable, you have to upgrade to the new standards. Check your extinguisher's pressure gauge. It needs to be in the operable range. Make sure the lock pin is secure, the nozzle is clear, and there's no visible corrosion or damage. January 2025 brought massive changes to life jacket requirements. The Coast Guard completely overhauled their classification system, moving from the old Type 1 to 5 system to a new performance level system based on buoyancy ratings. The enforcement timeline is critical here. While the new rule became effective January 6, 2025, the Coast Guard started actively enforcing it June 4, 2025. Certain foam life jackets are no longer considered valid, and owners must transition to newer Type 2 or Type 5 models. This isn't just bureaucratic paperwork shuffling. Coast Guard statistics show that 84% of drowning victims weren't wearing life jackets. The new standards are designed to ensure the life jackets you're counting on will actually save lives. Here's a rule change that's confusing a lot of boaters. Throwable Type 4 life jackets can no longer substitute for wearable types on boats under 16 feet. You need one Type 1, 2, 3, or 5 life jacket for each person on board, plus one Type 4 throwable device. It's an addition, not a substitution. Since April 2021, recreational vessels under 26 feet with engines producing 115 pounds of static thrust, about 3 horsepower, must use engine cutoff switches and the associated link. This came from the Elijah E. Cummings Coast Guard Authorization Act of 2020. If your boat was built January 2020 or later, the engine cutoff switch must be maintained in working condition for the boat's entire life. There are exemptions for enclosed cabins, displacement speed operation, and low-speed activities like fishing or docking. But when you're on plane, that switch better be connected. The Coast Guard is cracking down on aftermarket navigation lights that don't meet certification requirements. Those cool-looking LED replacements might not provide proper chromaticity, luminous intensity, or cutoff angles. Using non-compliant lights can result in violation notices or even cause accidents. You're also prohibited from using any lights that could be confused for navigation lights. That means no white, green, or red decorative lighting, no blue lights reserved for law enforcement, and no yellow lights reserved for towing operations. Your approved navigation lights should clearly show Coast Guard approval and meet proper testing standards. The Clean Water Act of 1972 is still very much enforced. If you have a toilet installed, it must have a Coast Guard certified marine sanitation device. You cannot discharge raw sewage within 3 miles of shore, in the Great Lakes, or navigable rivers. The fines here are particularly steep, up to $2,000 per violation for effluent that doesn't meet EPA standards. Your Y valve must be secured in the closed position with a padlock, non-resealable tie, or by removing the handle when within 3 miles of shore. Every vessel under 39.4 feet must carry an efficient, sound-producing device capable of a 4-second blast audible for half a mile. This isn't just for emergencies. It's required for navigation rules compliance. Speaking of emergency communications, make sure your VHF radio is properly programmed for Channel 16, the International Marine Distress Frequency. Boats between 39.4 and 65.6 feet used to need both a whistle and a bell, but recent changes eliminated the bell requirement. Still, your whistle must be audible for half a nautical mile. This is a critical safety issue that's often overlooked. Anyone water skiing or using aquaplaning devices must wear a Coast Guard-approved, non-inflatable life jacket. Inflatable life jackets are specifically prohibited for these activities and aren't recommended for anyone under 16. The reason is simple physics. Inflatable life jackets need time to deploy and require the wearer to be conscious. In high-speed water sports accidents, you might be unconscious, or the life jacket might not inflate properly. The enforcement landscape is changing rapidly. Civil penalties can reach $117,608 per day for major violations, with criminal penalties including up to 6 years in prison. Illegal charter operations face fines up to $69,000, and lacking proper documentation can cost $20,468. Remember, boating under the influence violations carry similar penalties to DUI on land, with increasing Coast Guard enforcement. Some states are adding their own twists. Florida's 2025 Boater Freedom Act now requires probable cause for vessel stops, while Maine just updated their life jacket age requirements for 2026. California has tightened regulations on personal watercraft operation, and Texas expanded their mandatory boater education requirements for 2025. The bottom line is that Coast Guard regulations aren't suggestions. They're federal law with serious consequences. But beyond avoiding fines, these rules exist because they save lives. Every item on this list represents lessons learned from real accidents and real tragedies. Take an honest inventory of your safety gear. Check expiration dates, verify certifications, and upgrade anything that doesn't meet current standards. Consider getting a free USCG auxiliary vessel safety check to ensure your boat meets all current requirements. It's the best way to avoid surprises during an inspection. Yes, it's an investment, but it's far less expensive than Coast Guard fines, and more importantly, it could save your life or the lives of your passengers. The water doesn't care if you're an experienced boater or a weekend warrior. It only cares if you're properly prepared when something goes wrong. Here's your action plan. Pause this video right now, go check your boat, and look for these 3 things: expired flares, old fire extinguishers, and outdated life jackets. Take a photo and drop a comment below telling me what you found. Seriously, I want to know. How much of your safety gear is actually illegal right now? The most shocking discovery gets pinned. Also, if this opened your eyes to gear violations you didn't know about, subscribe because next week I'm breaking down the boat modifications that void your insurance coverage. Stuff your agent never told you when you signed the policy. And if you haven't watched my Coast Guard boarding video yet, link in the description. Stay legal out there.